So, welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Automating Lobster and Oyster Meat Extraction and Inactivating Vibrio and Norovirus using HPP, brought to you by Seafood Source and sponsored by Hyperbaric. We have a few housekeeping notes to go over before we get started. If you need any technical assistance, we first recommend refreshing your browser. If you continue to have technical questions or issues using the On24 platform, please use the Q&A box and we will respond as soon as we can. There will be no call-in number for today's session. To connect, you need to have access to either a computer, tablet, or cell phone audio. Everyone has been muted. So that you don't miss any shared content or an opportunity to share valuable feedback with us, we recommend you enable pop-ups within your browser. If you happen to get disconnected, you can log on again using the instructions provided in your webinar confirmation email. If you continue to have trouble, please email info@seafoodsource.com and we will respond as soon as we can. For your convenience, everything in the webinar console is fully customizable, so you can move things around, resize the window, and even turn on captions for this event. At the bottom of your console, you will also find a resources box where you can download the slides as well as any additional content for today's presentation. Speaking of questions, you can ask questions at any time during the presentation by submitting it through the box. We'll leave time at the end of the session to answer as many questions as time allows. And finally, this webinar will be recorded and you'll receive a thank you email with the on-demand materials within 2 business days. And with that out of the way, I would like to welcome our speakers for today. We'll hear from Anthony Zapata, Business Development Manager at Hyperbaric. Anthony is a sales and marketer with extensive experience in the food and beverage industry. He currently serves as the Business Development Manager at Hyperbaric, a global leader in high-pressure processing technology. Anthony attended Florida State University, where he earned his bachelor's degree in marketing in 2017. After graduation, he started his career in marketing and sales, working with Universal Pure, the largest high-pressure processing toller in the United States. In 2020, Anthony joined Hyperbaric, where he has since played a role in driving business growth and implementing a global marketing infrastructure. He works closely with food and beverage manufacturers to educate them on the benefits of HPP technology. He works closely with such as food safety and extended shelf life. When he is not working, Anthony enjoys traveling, exploring new cultures, and trying new foods. Anthony is a foodie at heart, passionate about anything and everything that goes into providing sustainable, healthy nutrition for the future. We'll also hear from Daniela Soto, HPP Food Applications Specialist at Hyperbaric. Daniela graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Food Engineering from Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico. Currently, Daniela is an HPP Food Applications Specialist at Hyperbaric in Miami, Florida. In this role, Daniela provides scientific and technological support to HPP users, including seafood processors. She helps customers innovate HPP products at the Hyperbaric HPP Incubator Pilot Plant in Miami, Florida. She is a thought leader for HPP, participating in webinars, presentations, workshops, etc. Daniela has experience in food research and industry and has been involved with the Institute of Food Technologists, winning 2 international competitions. At this time, I would like to welcome our speakers and hand the webinar off to Anthony.
Hey, Joanne, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And a big thank you to Seafood Source for hosting today's webinar titled High Pressure Processing, Automating Lobster and Oyster Meat Extraction, and Inactivating Vibrio and Norovirus. So the theme for today's webinar is going to focus on 2 different aspects of using HPP for the seafood sector, one being the automation angle, as well as the other being the food safety angle, where we're able to achieve an inactivation of various pathogens and viruses. So the agenda for today is I'm going to be quickly highlighting some processor seafood challenges that we've seen in the last 2 years. I'll give a brief introduction to how HPP technology works. We'll then dive deeper into numerous important information that you need to particularly have for the processing of lobster and oysters. I'll then share some commercial examples that exist on the market, and then we'll end it with an exciting shucking demo here at our pilot plant showing the meat extraction of oysters. So before we start talking about HPP, I wanted to point out two major processor challenges that we've seen, like I said, in the last 2 years, starting off with the raw oysters, the challenges around raw oysters. Obviously, there's been numerous recalls, specifically this year around Vibrio and Norovirus. Looking at the data, according to the CDC, 52% of foodborne illnesses are associated to norovirus here in the USA. When you look at Vibrio, there are more than 2,800 contaminations with this specific virus here in the USA. And if you combine both of these, there are over 1,000 deaths. So it's honestly a big challenge for some of the raw oyster processors that are dealing with this product. The other being labor, sourcing labor. Right after the pandemic, I mean, we've been reached out by numerous seafood processors, not only in the seafood space, but also across the board within the food processing sector. Sourcing labor has been a critical challenge. If you take, for an example, an average shucking operator, which on average can shuck about a single oyster in 30 seconds, that's about 120 oysters per hour. And if you compare that with HPP equipment, our range of HPP machines, you can process between 10,000 oysters up to 95,000 oysters per hour. There is labor involved in the processing of oysters or lobsters. Depending on the size of the machine, you generally need about 2 to 4 operators. And if we want to be really conservative, let's take the example of World Guinness record holder Patrick McMurray. He's a world champion oyster shucker that can process 1,114 oysters per hour. That's still very conservative when comparing to what an HPP machine can do. So like I mentioned, HPP offers a solution to seafood shucking, both for crustaceans and oysters, and we'll be taking a deeper dive into that throughout the webinar. So now let's take a step back and explain what truly is HPP technology, which is, in short, is high pressure processing. HPP is a cold pasteurization method that uses both high pressure and cold water. It's based on the principle of isostatic pressure, meaning pressure is being applied at all equal sides, generally for post-packaged products. And I'll play a quick video for you guys to see what that looks like firsthand.
High-pressure processing by hyperbaric. Traditional HPP machines process in-pack products, generally in their final commercial packaging. The main components of a hyperbaric in-pack machine are the conveyors, used to load and unload the baskets containing products, the vessel, where products are processed, the plugs and wedges, used to close the vessel, all framed in a yoke that would stand the high pressure generated by intensifiers. A cycle starts loading packaged products in the baskets, which are introduced in the vessel. The vessel is aligned with the yoke and is filled with low-pressure water. Then it is closed at both sides by plugs and wedges. High-pressure pumps start pushing pressurized water inside the vessel. Intensifier, hydraulic oil pushes the piston, whose area is much larger than the one of the plunger. Due to this difference of sections, the pressure of the water is intensified, raising up to 6,000 bar, 87,000 psi inside the vessel. Then pressure is held for a few minutes. HPP inactivates microorganisms without the use of heat, being respectful with the characteristics of fresh food products. Finally, the depressurization of the vessel and the opening of the machine take only some seconds. Afterwards, processed products are unloaded. High-pressure technology is applied to a wide range of products. The global HPP production is estimated in more than 1.5 million tons per year. Different kinds of packaging can be used. They must be water resistant and flexible enough to withstand the product volume compression of up to 20% and the total shrinkage of the headspace. Hyperbaric has the widest range of industrial impact HPP machines, being able to process from 250 kilograms per hour up to more than 3,000 kilograms per hour. To know more about high-pressure processing, please visit us at hyperbaric.com.
So as you guys saw in the video, the process, to just basically recap the video, the process begins with generally post-packaged products being loaded into a basket. The basket then enters what we call the vessel. The vessel is filled with low-pressure water through the plugs on each ends. We then have intensifiers apply high pressure. Once that pressure is reached, we apply isostatic pressure, which compresses the product on each end, on equal side ends of the product to up to 15%. During this compression, a number of things are happening, such as the inactivation of pathogenic bacteria, as well as spoilage microorganisms. Once that pressure finishes, we instantly decompress and the product that has been processed can be removed on the other end. So when we talk about HPP machines, and it's things that I've already mentioned prior to this, but there are three major parameters that we need to be looking at. One, starting with pressure. All commercial HPP machines can go up to 87,000 PSI, which is equivalent to 6,000 bar, which is a whole lot of pressure. It's about 5 times more pressure found at the deepest part of the ocean, which would be the Mariana Trench. Aside from pressure, another big parameter is the holding time. For generally post-packaged products, you're looking at about 180 seconds. So this is the time that the pressure is set for. So once you achieve that pressure, we hold for that time that's inserted into the recipe. And then lastly, you have water temperature, which most products are being processed at about 41 degrees Fahrenheit to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So these pressure and holding times that you see on the screen are usually for post-packaged products. Obviously, when it comes to seafood, you have the shucking application, which uses lower moderate pressures and lower holding times. And I won't get too much into it because Daniela will be spending some time on it and giving you guys the recommended parameters to use for shucking. So overall, HPP offers an innovative solution to enhance food safety since it inactivates foodborne pathogens such as Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, as well as viruses such as Vibrio and Norovirus. It's an alternative to using thermal pasteurization since it's based on a cold water concept. With this being said, it also preserves the quality of fresh food. Through the inactivation of spoilage microorganisms, you also get an extended shelf life, which can open the door to new market opportunities and allow you to scale your business. And lastly, you don't need to rely on preservatives or additives for your product. Some of the applications that are used with our machines include juices and beverages. Think fruit and vegetable cold pressed juices and wellness shots. We have meat products, both ready to eat and ready to cook. Think deli meats, cured meats, prosciutto, salami. Within the avocado sector, you have guacamole, avocado pulp, and avocado halves. Within the salsas, plant-based, and fruit space, you have a number of dips, wet salads, fruit cups in their own fruit juice. And another application that has recently been trending has been fruit and veggie and protein purees within the baby food sector. Other applications include ready-to-eat meals, obviously seafood products, which is what we're going to be focusing on today's webinar, dairy products, which include yogurt, cheeses, and several dairy-based dips. We're also involved in the pet food space, mainly the raw pet food sector, as well as cosmetics and pharma for both nutraceuticals and a number of face masks. Within the HPP seafood space, you have, like I said, two major applications. You have the application of meat extraction, which can be applied to a number of seafood products, including lobsters, crabs, and several bivalves such as oysters and mollusks and clams. And then you have your post-packaging application, which helps with food safety and shelf life extension. That includes raw fish fillets, pre-cooked octopus, desalted cod, algae, fish salads, ready-to-eat meals where a fillet of fish can sit on top of grains or different types of rices, and then also pre-cooked crab meat. Lastly, to wrap up this introduction, I wanted to shout out the Cold Pressure Council. It's an organization that leads, facilitates, and promotes industry standardization, user education, and consumer awareness of HPP. A key benefit within the Cold Pressure Council is their high pressure certification seal, which is used by this member Seaweed, which is a company based out of South Korea, which they export seaweed salad to the United States, which you can find in Costco. As you can see on the bottom left, they have their high pressure certification mark to promote the benefits of HPP. If you'd like to learn more about the Cold Pressure Council and other products that use this certification, please visit www.coldpressurecouncil.org. So this wraps up my introduction. I'll now hand it off to Daniela, who will be taking a deep dive into shellfish shucking with HPP.
Thank you, Anthony. So now I'm going to present in more detail the technical aspects to take into consideration when applying HPP and shellfish shucking applications. So as Anthony mentioned previously, there are two main applications of HPP in seafood products. The first one is the shucking and meat extraction of either crustaceans or bivalves. For this type of application, the processing parameters will be with low pressures up to 29K to K PSI for a short holding time between 1 to 3 minutes. And on the other hand, we have the shelf life extension of food safety that can be achieved with HPP, which could be applied to cooked seafood products as well as to raw seafood. For this type of application, the processing parameters will be up to 87K PSI. You can see the pressure applied in this type of products is higher, and the holding time will be up to 3 to 6 minutes. Also, this should be reviewed in a case-by-case assessment. And I want to make a little recap on the shucking and meat extraction, in which shelf life can be also extended in this type of products, and also food safety can also be ensured by lowering to safe levels the microbial load of some pertinent pathogens, such as Vibrio or Norovirus. So as I was mentioning, HPP can help ensure food safety by eliminating these pertinent pathogens in seafood products, such as Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria, Vibrio, Norovirus, between others. And also it can help eliminating spoilage deteriorative microorganisms, such as yeasts and molds, which will help to extend the shelf life. And also HPP can help meet the established requirements by food authorities. Also, I want to mention that HPP has this limitation of not being able of eliminating bacterial spores. So additional controls must be added in order to regard this risk. So first, I want to recap on traditional shucking, which, as you may already know, it is a high labor-intensive process. Also, it is a very time-consuming step, and it does not guarantee that 100% of the meat that can be recovered will be obtained. So also, since it is very manual, injuries could occur for the ones that are processing and handling these oysters. So unlike traditional shucking, HPP shucking offers a number of advantages that can be englobed in 5 simple steps. The first one is the loading of the live product into what we call the basket that Anthony presented previously. We recommend to introduce the product alive in order to prevent the rigor mortis effect. And also, like at the end, you'll obtain a more fresh product. And well, then the loaded product is loaded into the vessel and it is filled with low pressure water. We recommend to process at low temperatures between 46.4 degrees Fahrenheit. And based on our experience, this will help obtain a better shucking performance when extracting the meat and preserving as well the product freshness. Then the intensifiers inside the machine will pump high pressure water into the vessel, and the desired pressure will be reached and it will be held for a certain holding time. At this moment, the shocking and the inactivation of microorganisms is the moment in which it will be done. Then the pressure will be released from the machine and product will be unloaded. So now I want to explain a little bit furtherly about HPP applied in oyster processing, which will help obtain an effortless shucking by processing at low pressures between 2,500 to 2,700 bars in order to help lose the muscle attached to the shell. And what will occur here is that HPP will help denature the proteins inside the abductor muscle that will help attach the meat to the shell, and then it will be easier to perform this extraction. Also, HPP can help ensure food safety by controlling Vibrio and Norovirus. I'll also explain it furtherly. And HPP can also help extend the shelf life in oysters up to 21 days without adding any preservatives under refrigerated and controlled conditions. So as you know, parameters, with the HPP parameters, which are pressure and holding time, are 2 key factors in order to perform a successful meat extraction. And as you can see here on the screen is a case study that was done with Pacific oysters. And they found that by applying 275 megapascals for a holding time of 3 minutes, or by applying 300 megapascals for holding time of 2 minutes, a total release of the meat from the shell could be achieved. However, they found that by applying higher pressures, broken shells could be found, and also partial release of the meat from the shell could also be obtained. So I want to make emphasize in this and tell you that to find the best parameters for oyster shucking, it will need to be reviewed in a case-by-case assessment. And while HPP can also help improve some sensorial attributes when processing bivalves, such as the case here with clams, where they found in this case study that by increasing the pressure level that is applied, the moisture content will also increase. And also by increasing the pressure, the total yield release of the meat extracted from the shell also increased. And well, again, this should be analyzed in a case-by-case assessment. As you can see here, this was the case for clams. And well, HPP does not only achieve, but can significantly surpass a reduction in Vibrio required by the Interstate Shellfish Sanitation Conference, or ISSC, in which the FDA makes reference when looking to reduce the level of Vibrio found And in the Seafood HACCP, which is published by the FDA, they mentioned that a reduction of 3.52 log should be obtained. So as you can see here, there's enough evidence. Here I can show you 8 different research publications that show that a different combination of parameters, this reduction level can be successfully achieved. And while high pressure can also help reduce the levels of norovirus present in oysters, as you can see, this is some evidence of 4 case studies that analyzed HPP applied in oysters. And as you can see, by varying the pressure and holding time, different reductions of norovirus could be obtained. And well, in other words, Vibrio and Norovirus are not a worry when using HPP as a food safety measure, since it can help eliminating to safe measures. And I want to share with you some oyster commercial formats in which you can present your HPP oysters. The first one is the banded in-shell oyster, where you place a rubber band around the oyster in order to maintain it closed during depressurization and depressurization. And this way, the consumer can have this experience of performing the meat extraction from the shell by themselves. The next format is the half shell one, where oysters are placed on a tray and the top shell is removed from it, and then it is skim packed under vacuum. And this will help to prevent the meat from moving from the shell. And also it will give this value add appearance of showing how is the meat inside the shell, to show the consumer how it is. And then the third format is a vacuum packed one. So the released meat is vacuum packed in a 10K OTR bag, and it is sold that way. Now I'll go deeper into explaining how HPP can be applied when processing lobsters. So as it was the case with oysters, in lobsters, it can be obtained also for less shocking by applying pressures that will be a little bit higher than the ones that were applied with oysters that I mentioned before. These processing parameters will be between 2,000 or 4,000 bar. At these pressure levels, the muscle attached to the shell will release easier, and I can ensure that 100% of the meat could be recovered after applying HPP on lobsters. And well, HPP can also help ensure food safety by achieving up to 3.52 log reductions or even greater when looking to inactivate Vibrio, and again, to meet with the standards imposed by the ISSC. And I want to make a little recap on the importance of using the correct packaging material when processing HPP seafood products. It needs to be a 10K OTR plastic material in order to meet what the FDA guidelines ask for in the Seafood HACCP. It is well explained there. And this will help ensure food safety. As you can see here in this image, it's from a client of ours that packs their lobster meat in this type of packaging. And also you can see that it is mentioned at the bottom of the bag. So now I want to show you this case study where consumer acceptance was analyzed in sous vide cooked lobster tails that were furtherly processed with HPP. And they found that after processing with HPP, these samples showed no significant differences when looking for changes in the sensory scores between the unprocessed and HPP processed lobster cooked tails. As you can see, they analyzed the aroma, appearance, texture, flavor, and they found no significant differences between the unprocessed and HPP processed samples. Also, they grouped the main sensorial descriptors when looking to describe texture, and they found that HPP lobster tails were associated as juicier and firmer more frequently, and this helped increase the consumer acceptance in these lobsters. And also, they saw that the unprocessed cooked lobster tails were more consistently perceived as soft or mushy when talking about texture. And finally, in the same case study, HPP lobster tails had a higher acceptance throughout the shelf life. As you can see in the presented graph, throughout the 21 to 28 days of increased shelf life under refrigerated storage, the consumer acceptance remained higher, in contrast to the unprocessed samples that started to obtain like a higher rejection level in these unprocessed samples when they reached the 7 days. So as you can see, by also increasing the shelf life, you can still preserve the sensory attributes that will remain throughout the shelf life. And well, I want to share this other case study where raw lobster tails were analyzed, and they analyzed the freshness throughout the shelf life of these raw lobster tails. And the way they analyzed this was by analyzing the total volatile-based nitrogen compounds, which are an indicator of freshness. So they observed that the HPP samples remained under the detection level when measuring the total volatile-based nitrogen compounds, in contrast to the unprocessed samples that, as you can see, these compounds increased throughout the shelf life. However, the HPP ones remained fresh. And this is mainly attributed to the effectivity of HPP and inactivating deteriorative microorganisms, which are mainly causant of producing these compounds that deteriorate the seafood products. And well, finally, I want to share with you some commercial formats in which you can commercialize your HPP lobster products. The first one is the whole or split lobster. And again, this one is presented this way so that the consumer can have the experience of peeling up the shell from the meat and have this like culinary experience too of having the lobster already cut in halves. And well, the second format that I want to share is the raw or cooked knuckle and claw meat, which is packed under a 10K OTR plastic material. This is very important to remember. And again, the consumer can just open the bag and consume their product if it's cooked, and even like if it's raw, like however they want to consume it. And the third commercial format is the raw or cooked lobster tails, in which the lobster tail can be presented already peeled off or already with the shell on. So again, the consumer can have the experience of peeling the shell from the cooked lobster tail. So I'll now hand it back to Anthony.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate that insightful presentation. So now we'll jump into lobster and oyster HPP commercial examples by some of our customers and seafood companies that are leveraging the technology. I'll quickly give an overview so that we can save some time for the shucking demo. So starting off with Westmoreland Fisheries, they're based out of New Brunswick, Canada. They have both they have multiple formats. As you can see in the first image, it's a raw naked lobster on a skin packed tray. They also have the twin tails in the center and the packed meat, which includes claw, knuckle, and tail meat. And on the right side, you can see a whole raw lobster that has been treated with HPP and netted. You also have Riverside Lobster, which is based out of Nova Scotia, Canada. They have several formats, including also the whole raw HPP lobster netted, frozen raw lobster tails, and also different both raw and cooked meat packs. Next up, we have, I'll call them 5 Degrees West, to not butcher their name. They're the pioneer in high-pressure seafood processing in France and Europe. They use HPP primarily for the meat extraction process. They process both raw lobster meat as well as oysters, but other applications such as langoustines and cockles. In this slide, you can see their lobster process where they maintain the lobster in the same conditions where they normally would be alive in. From there, they go into the HPP machine where they're instantly killed in the most humane way possible. From there, they're shelled into different pieces. The meat is removed. They then go under a nitrogen freezing process within 30 minutes of deshelling to preserve peak freshness. From there, it's vacuum packed, graded, sent off to storage, and distributed. On the right side, you can see some of the images at their manufacturing facility. Next up, we have our customer Greenhead Lobster. They're based out of Stonington, Maine. They actually have their HPP processing facility about an hour away from the docks. I won't spend too much time talking about them since we do have a pretty neat video that walks you through their manufacturing facility, which I'll play now.
Stonington, Maine is the home of Greenhead Lobster, the largest lobster port in Maine and a family-owned business since 1997 that focuses on one product, wild-caught fresh lobster. Lobster in Stonington is a way of life. Our lobsters are harvested by a dedicated fleet of lobster men and women, many of whom have been delivering their daily catch of lobsters from the waters of Penobscot Bay to the Greenhead Lobster docks for generations. Lobster is different in Stonington. We are lucky to live where we live and have the clean water, dramatic tides, and ideal temperatures for great tasting lobster. It's our mission to offer the highest quality lobster.
Lobster technology has changed dramatically in the past 10 years. We've been at the forefront of innovation by implementing high-pressure processing technology. It's the only technology that meets Greenhead Lobster standard. Using our state-of-the-art HPP facility, we can retain the same sweet flavor, texture, and taste of the lobster from the day it was harvested. HPP also allows us to separate 100% of the meat from the shell, increase the total meat in lobster by up to 80%, and ensure food safety by eliminating foodborne pathogens. The cold pressure technology also increases productivity and maximizes labor usage while offering a tastier, premium quality with an extended shelf life.
So how does HPP work? HPP is a non-thermal technology that uses cold water in extreme high pressure, about 5 times more pressure found than at the bottom of the ocean. Live fresh lobsters are placed into containers, which then are pushed into the HPP unit for 2 minutes. The high water pressure breaks the connective tissue that bonds the meat to the shell and allows for the meat to be easily recovered. Since no heat is involved, the innate flavor, texture, and nutritional properties of the lobsters are preserved. This allows for a fresh, out-of-the-ocean, all-natural tasting experience.
After the initial HPP, the lobster is divided into parts and offered in tail packs with or without the shell. Then the claw knuckle meat is further HPP to 87,000 psi, and that extends our shelf life from 10 to 18 days.
Without the use of heat, HPP ensures our customers that we're providing them with the highest quality product by the time it reaches their doorstep.
The partnership to hyperbaric is an essential relationship in our business. We're unique that our process line starts with hyperbaric, that it really identifies the products of Greenhead Lobster and our raw, frozen, and cooked lobster products. So hyperbaric is an essential part of Greenhead Lobster.
Quick shout out to Greenhead Lobster and Hugh Reynolds, who leads that operation up in Stonington, Maine. Next up, we have another lobster processor, also based in Maine, that has trademarked their shucked raw lobster meat under the name Cold Cracked Lobster, which is pretty clever. Not sure if there's any chefs in the audience, but raw lobster meat opens the door to endless culinary opportunities. On the right, the two images on the top right, you can see on the left a naked lobster with the claw and knuckle meat on both ends, and on the right, poached raw lobster meat being poached in butter. Next up, we have another seafood processor based out of Barcelona, Spain. They also primarily use HPP for the meat extraction process. Not only do they process lobsters, but they also have oysters that they use the technology with, and crayfish. I will play a quick video that shows this extraction process in a whole lobster. You see after HPP, they're separating the claw and knuckle portion of the lobster, detaching the tail from the lobster. As you can see, it's an easy and effortless shuck. The meat is fully detached from the shell. From there, you can easily pull away the tail meat. The claws do take some cracking. A slight crack will open up that shell. And then from there, you have an absolute 100% yield, easy extraction of the raw lobster meat. That final portion, you can see the lobster in its entirety. Moving along from lobsters to oysters, company Goose Point, they have an oyster farm in Willapa Bay, Washington. They're the pioneers in pre-shuck banded oysters. They've also trademarked their rubber banded oyster under pre-shucked blue seal oysters. Motivatit Seafoods is another oyster processor based in Houma, Louisiana. They market their in-shell oysters under the Gold brand oyster name. They also have a line for shucked oyster meat in tubs. I'll now move along to highlighting some of our HPP equipment and offerings. From there, I will mention some of the support services that we offer here at Hyperbaric, and then we'll dive straight into the shucking demo portion of the webinar. So our impact range includes 5 different model sizes. They all function the same. They could achieve the same pressures, which would be 87,000 PSI, which is equivalent to 6,000 bar. From smallest to largest, on the top left, you have your Hyperbaric 55 liter machine. Next to that is the 135 liter. On the bottom, from left to right, you have the 300, the 420, and our largest machine, the 525 liter machine. Hyperbaric is the global leader in HPP equipment with 65% market share. We've installed over 400 systems in 45 countries across 5 continents. In terms of productivity, it's going to be based off, obviously, the parameters used, which are pressure and holding time. But if we use the average, which would be 3,000 bar for 60 seconds, our smallest machine can shuck about 1,000 pounds per hour, up to our largest machine that can do around 10,500 pounds per hour. I do want to mention a humble brag, but Hyperbaric was the first to market and industrialize the horizontal HPP machine. Prior to that, there were vertical machines on the market, but we thought there were many advantages to a horizontal design, including improved traceability, where you're loading and unloading on one end and unloading on the other. It's a more ergonomic design where you can both load and unload at waist chest level of the operators. And it makes it a whole lot easier when it comes to maintenance. Lastly, I do want to mention that we have 2 pilot plants, one here in Miami, Florida, where Daniela and myself are based out of. We also have a pilot plant in our headquarters in Burgos, Spain. We have a team of food scientists that can provide support from product development, giving you packaging recommendations as well as processing parameters, They can help with food safety regulations and provide guidance on validation and shelf life studies. Our applications team consists of 5 food scientists, 3 of which are doctors and process authorities and have more than 20 plus years of experience in the HPP industry. If you have any technical questions whatsoever, you can reach all of them at the email apps@hyperbaric.com. That's apps@hyperbaric.com. So some final remarks. Going back to the theme of today's presentation, obviously when it comes to challenges within the seafood sector, top of the list come up food safety and sourcing labor. We think HPP is a perfect solution to help some of these challenges that seafood processors are facing, starting with the food safety benefit, where with HPP, you can use that as a tool to inactivate numerous pathogens, spoilage microorganisms, and both Vibrio and Norovirus. It provides a solution for effortless shucking. It's a completely 100% natural process, and you also get the benefit of shelf life extension. I will now play a quick video that shows the loading and unloading of oysters for you guys to see that firsthand, and then we'll move straight to our pilot plant where we'll be showing the meat extraction of oysters.
All right, so welcome to our hyperbaric HPP pilot plant in Miami, Florida. Behind me, I have our 55-liter machine, which is our smallest unit. Right behind me, I have loaded clustered oysters into our baskets. These oysters have already been shucked. I did want you guys to see them. Here we have Pacific oysters, which have already been processed in the machine at under 2 different recipes, one being 50,000 PSI for 2 minutes, and another being 43,500 PSI for 2 minutes. I'll allow now Daniela to show the meat extraction process from these both oysters.
Thank you, Anthony. So here we have some Kumamoto oysters that were retrieved here in the US and the Pacific. And here I have these oysters that are already shucked. These ones that Anthony just mentioned, they were processed at 50K PSI for 2 minutes. These ones were processed at the highest pressures. And as you can see, it was very easy to open the oyster. And now, just by pushing the meat, it's extremely easy to perform the extraction.
Maybe we can do one more, larger one?
Yeah, of course. As you can see, also I want to show you that the shell is clean. No meat remains in it. I'll show you this one, which is bigger. Just by lifting the upper shell, it's very easy to perform this shucking. And again, just by pushing it, you can see how easy the meat is released. However, in this case, you can see like a little part is still here. And we also processed the same Kumamoto oysters from the Pacific, but at different pressure level, which is 43.5K PSI for 2 minutes. And we have found that these pressures in this combination parameters were the most successful one. So you can see it was extremely easy to open the shell. And again, it was extremely easy to perform this extraction. And again, it's clean. I can do another one with a bigger oyster. Again, just by lifting the upper shell, clean, and just by pushing it, it's clean, and the meat is recovered.
I do want to point out throughout the webinar, you guys saw different formats of oysters being processed. These oysters can be processed with a rubber band to maintain the experience for the consumer. They can be processed, and the top shell can be removed for a half shell format. Or you also have the oyster meat pack format, which is basically just meat packed up in either bags or tubs.
And also, well, HPP also, since it helps performing the shucking, opening the shell, but also making it so easy the extraction of the meat, it also helps performing like the ensure food safety and increasing the shelf life of this already treated products.
Awesome. Well, I think that wraps up our webinar for today. I will hand it off back to Jovian to see if we have any questions from the audience.
Yes, absolutely. So we already have quite a few questions here. As a quick reminder, if you have not already asked your question, or if you think of another one, you could submit your questions to us using the Q&A panel in your console. Just to get us started, our first question here is from Alexander. Alexander is wondering, will hyperbaric exhibit in SEG in Barcelona in April?
Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry, I cannot hear you clearly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Alexander is wondering, will hyperbaric exhibit in SEG in Barcelona in April?
So we will be exhibiting in Barcelona. I don't have the booth number on top of my head, but we'll also be exhibiting at the Seafood Expo North America in Boston at booth number 2074. Daniela will also be giving a exciting presentation on seafood, not only for shucking, but also post-packaged products on March 11th at 9:15 a.m. in room 152.
Great, thank you for that. Our next question is from Makoto. They are wondering, can you take out scallop shell using HPP?
Absolutely. We also have customers that process scallops for the shucking and meat extraction from the scallop.
Great, we have another.
You can reach out to us directly, and we can show you, several studies and share some visuals on what that extraction looks like.
Also, if you want to ship us some of your samples in order to see how HPP perform the shucking extraction, you're invited to ship them to us here at Miami to process them at our HPP pilot plant with our machine.
Thank you so much for that. We have a related question here. So they already asked about scallop shucking, which we answered, but they're wondering also about whelk or land snail.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
This other attendee is wondering about whelk or land snail.
Land snails.
Land snails. That's an interesting application. Yeah. Do you have any experience processing land snails?
In fact, by now I don't remember any, but if you want to, you're still invited to ship us some of your samples to process them here at our HPP pilot plant, so you can see the results.
Great, thank you for that. A question here from Jen. Jen is wondering, can you do a lower temperature, for example, lower than 46.4 Fahrenheit?
Can we use lower temperatures when processing?
Yes,
Absolutely.
we can. The ones that I recommended, I suggested them because based on our experience, we have seen that the mentioned temperatures, the extraction of the meat from the shell is very well and successfully performed. But yes, you can still process at lower temperature.
And the beauty of our pilot plant is that we can find the perfect pressure, the perfect holding time, and the perfect temperature at which products are processed. So we highly welcome everyone to interested in doing testing to reach out.
Also, I just want to make a little recap on it that in order to process seafood products with HPP, it is very important that they are fresh, that they are not frozen. So this is another key thing that I want to share with you.
Thank you for that. Another question here from Jen. Jen is wondering how many gallons is used per run?
How many gallons is used for
any run? Like
it depends. If they're referring to the water used in the machine, it depends on the size of the machine. But we can send some exact information to that attendee later on.
Thank you. We have a question here from JP. JP is wondering what size of building is recommended for seafood HPP?
What size of building is recommended? Can you repeat that? Are they asking what size building is recommended for an HPP machine?
Yes, that is my understanding.
It varies. I'm probably in a building of 1,000 square feet here. I mean, our smallest machine, the beauty of it is that it doesn't require any reinforcement of the flooring. The smallest machine, which is the 55 liter in feet, is 26.4 in length, 7.8 in width, and 7.1 in height.
Perfect. Thank you for that response. One question here, again from Jen. They're wondering, what about the mud on oysters? Will this affect the cycle run?
The mud on oysters. So the beauty of our HPP machines is that we do have a filter within the machines that can clean up the debris and grit from whether it be oysters or lobsters during the cycle. But we do highly recommend that the products are washed prior to processing. Obviously, that'll prevent the accumulation of grit and other particles that the seafood products may have.
Thank you for that. We have a question here from Vittorio. Vittorio is wondering, do you have to HPP the half-shell sealed trays or vacuum-packed meat again?
That is a interesting question. So generally, from my understanding, Daniela can confirm this afterwards, customers are processing oysters, removing the top shell, placing them on tray, vacuum sealing for freshness, and marketing that product from there on.
Exactly.
If you have any other input.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Anthony mentioned, if they want to do it, I recommend to perform some trials to see how well does the sample perform, the product perform after again processing it.
Great, thank you for that. So that does look like it is about all the time we have for today's program. I just want to quickly remind the audience that if you liked what you saw today, Hyperbaric will be at Seafood Expo North America, March 10th through 12th in Boston. You can find them at booth 2074. And before we close out today, I do have just a few final housekeeping notes to cover. If you could please fill out the short evaluation form that will appear on the webinar console. This will help us better serve your needs in future webinars. As a reminder, the on-demand materials will be emailed to everyone within 2 business days. This will include a PDF of the slides as well as a link to the recording of today's presentation. Thank you again to Anthony and Daniela for a great presentation today, and thank you to all of our attendees for taking the time out of your busy days to join us. This webinar was brought to you by Seafood Source and sponsored by Hyperbaric. Thank you all and have a great day.
Take care. Bye, everyone.